Welcome back. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. Our number 855-236-3228. That is 855-236-3228. Karen calling from Hilo, Hawaii. How are you doing, Karen? Go for it.
Hello. Aloha.
Aloha. How are you?
Am I really talking to Ben Shapiro?
You are indeed. I am here. You have reached me.
Well, I've been a faithful reader of yours and listener of your clips and everything that come on Facebook, and I can't believe I'm actually talking to you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So what's on your mind?
Well, I mean, I live in Hawaii, and we're a little bit off from what's going on the mainland, but I guess I just don't understand why President Trump has not put a kibosh on all of what's been going on, the looting, the rioting, the lawlessness. And so I was wondering your take on that. It just has left me kind of with a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answer is that, honestly, the first line of defense in all these cases is the mayor and the governor. But the president acted late on this. And I think every Republican knows this. I mean, for a week, the president basically sat in the basement and tweeted. And everybody who was on the right was going, wait a second, here's Captain Macho over here who's constantly saying he's going to be law and order guy and tweeting law and order ain't going to do it, right? Ann Coulter was tweeting out, in the middle of these riots, maybe he'll tweet again. Like, at some point, the president was supposed to come out, like the first 24 hours, and say, we understand that police brutality is something that we all want to curb and stop. The American police are not systemically racist. They're not bad people. The vast majority of them are heroes. And if there's rioting and looting, I'm making all resources of the federal government available to mayors and to governors. And if this crap doesn't stop inside 72 hours, then I'm invoking the Insurrection Act because our major cities cannot be curfewed or burned. This is insane. Like, that's what people were waiting for, that sort of strong action, and he didn't take that action. Now the riots and the looting seem to have calmed down for the most part. And if you look at states like Georgia, obviously the governor of Georgia is Republican, Brian Kemp. And so if there's rioting in Atlanta, then first opportunity to do something about it goes to the Republican governor. But as far as like Washington State and Seattle, at some point, the president probably is going to have to do something there. I mean, if the Washington or at the very least, he should be out there saying, why isn't the Washington like my federal troops are right here? Right? I've got the National Guard right here. Why is the Washington government, like, why is Trump not making an issue of this is really, it's political malpractice, frankly. We've got a country that is rife with rioting and looting for a week, and then it sort of dies down. And then you have an entire new republic set up in the center of Seattle. And the president has his campaign. This is his campaign. Would you like chaos? Would you like what the Democrats are selling you here? Because the last several weeks have been Democratic governance to the nines. Are you really enjoying this? And instead, the president is like tweeting about how he doesn't like John Bolton. It's malpractice. It's political malpractice.
Exactly. I've been feeling the same way. It's kind of left me with a lot of questions about the next election cycle. And
yeah, I mean, listen, I think that a lot of Republicans will end up coming home, right? A lot of Republicans will say, listen, at least it ain't going to be Biden, right? The Democratic governance here is not, but are people like pumped to go to the polls? Is the enthusiasm super high right now? I would say not. I mean, I've been seeing people who have been longtime Trump fans who are saying like, where is he? This is not what we bargained for. Like all of his chief. Again, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote for him. I'm planning on voting for him, but it does mean that the idea that Trump has got his base solidly behind him at this point, that is not what the polls are showing, and that is dangerous for him. He is trailing in nearly every swing state. He's running dead even in places like Texas. I mean, if we get these kind of results, it's a disaster for him. And it's a disaster for the Republican Party. He could lose Arizona. He could lose North Carolina. He's trailing in Arizona. He's trailing in North Carolina. He's trailing in Florida. He's now trailing in Michigan. He's trailing in Pennsylvania. He's trailing in Wisconsin. And he's running dead even, maybe trailing in Ohio. I mean, those are bad results. You lose the Senate and you lose the presidency to the Democrats and things get extraordinarily ugly.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean to be depressing, but this is why he has to do a better job. He cannot do this. I appreciate the call, Karen. And I hope you're at least enjoying the pandemic life over in Hawaii. I mean, if you're going to be locked down anywhere, it seems like Hawaii might not be a bad place to go.
We're doing really well with COVID, so we're awesome on that. And our beaches are open and our parks, so it's awesome.
Okay, well, that is good. That is good. I appreciate it, Karen. Thanks so much for calling. See, Andrew in California, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Andrew.
Hey, Ben. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Hey, so just real quick, I'm a law enforcement officer in California, and I just had a quick question. I just want to say that I love your work and what you do, and I don't know if you heard about the Bakersfield police officer that's on admin leave over a photo that was from his yearbook in high school. where he wore blackface. And I'm not saying it's right, but this is what happened when he was in high school, and it obviously wasn't deemed racist at the time or offensive at the time, as Jimmy Fallon and Robert Downey Jr. have done things like this. But now he's being disciplined now, like 10 years later.
I mean, that's craziness, obviously. It's absolute craziness. I mean, one of the keys to America's criminal justice system is the idea that even if you commit a violent crime when you're under 18, we basically wipe the record clean, right? Your juvie records are sealed. And nobody knows that you committed a crime. If you committed a crime when you're 15, you go to juvie. So if you commit an armed robbery when you're 14 years old, your record is essentially expunged by the time you become an adult, right? Nobody knows about your juvenile record. If you have a yearbook photo, a bad yearbook photo when you are 15 years old, then we will bring that up 15 years later, and then we will fire you from a police force, implying that you are a racist, even if your record shows no evidence of actual racial mistreatment. It's absurd. It's an absurdity. And this is why call-out culture is so ugly and so bad, because here's the deal. When the Puritans get going, and when they decide to uncover all sin, and when the only things that are deemed sins are sins by one particular class of people, because one of the things that we have gotten from the left is that no one on the left can be racist, and particularly racial minorities, it's impossible for them to be racist, right? This is why they've redefined the term racism to mean racism plus power, right? That's so they can say, well, here's a Louis Farrakhan being wildly anti-Semitic, but he's not actually anti-Semitic. He's not actually a bigot, because Louis Farrakhan is a black person, and so he doesn't have power. And if Al Sharpton says horrible things about white people, it's not racism, because Al Sharpton doesn't have power, which of course is completely untrue. I mean, he was a regular visitor at the Obama White House. The notion that racism only runs in one direction, or that a bad yearbook photo when you're 15 years old is indicative of a deep-seated racism that can never be removed from you, or that you're to be held accountable, frankly, for anything you said or did when you were a hormonal teenager popping your pimples and waiting to get a first date. It's absurdity at the highest level, Andrew, and it's making for an unlivable country. You're actually going to end up with more polarization. If you feel like you're living in an area where your yearbook photo is going to be brought up as an excuse to fire you from your job, you're just going to move. You're just going to leave. You're not going to live there anymore. And you're going to go join a business where people aren't going to do that to you. The polarization of American politics continues apace. The call-out culture is it's a very bad thing. Unless you did something right now that indicates your career or bad treatment of other people, in which case you can be called out. Or if you're a public figure and you can be called out, the idea that we're going to resurface your Halloween costume from 1832, and then we're going to be like, oh, well, now that means you should be fired as a cop in Bakersfield. Like, come on. It's absurd. And I think people are tired of it. I think there will be a backlash. I just don't know when it's going to come. And I think that, unfortunately, President Trump has not been a great vehicle for the backlash. I think that he was the vehicle of the backlash in 2016. But I think that because he is so fragmented and because he is so diffuse in his response and non-exact in his response, theoretically, he should be the guy, right? He is I am the breaker of politically correct chains. He's the breaker of chains, right? He's the queen of dragons when it comes to this sort of stuff. But he's too busy yelling at John Bolton to do anything about it, and that's very frustrating.
Yeah. So it seems like the radical left either want us cops either dead or in handcuffs or even fired. And I feel like I don't know if this is the pendulum is too far moved that it can change. And also, we're always told, hey, the silent majority is for us, and they're going to back. But why are they silent? Why aren't people just out?
Because they're afraid they're going to get fired, Andrew. I mean, it's not just about the cops. I mean, I was talking to a very prominent person last night, a very prominent person who considers himself a centrist. He's sort of somewhat conservative, and he works at a major company in a very, very high position. And this person said to me, this is a direct quote from last night. I'm never going to mention this person's names because he would be fired, probably just for talking to me. He literally said last night, if I tweeted out the vast majority of cops are heroes, if I tweeted that out, I would lose my job. That is the way that American society is working right now. And that's why the silent majority is silent. They're not afraid to speak up on behalf of cops. They're afraid they're going to lose their job if they speak up on behalf of cops, which is why eventually what's going to happen is that conservative employers will be the places that employ conservatives. That's what's going to happen, is you'll have entirely ideologically stratified companies, which is really bad for the country, but it's what the left wants. Andrew, I really appreciate the call. Leonce, Columbus, Ohio. Good to talk to you, Leonce. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, Ben. It's good to talk to you, too. I wanted to talk to you today about what you were talking about earlier, cancel culture. As a libertarian, I believe that the way to solve issues in society is not through political channels. So I feel like cancel culture is the way to solve those societal issues through the means of the market. And the market is really responsive to what the people in society want. So my question is don't you feel like at least cancel culture is better than having people ban hate speech?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. I mean, I talk about in my upcoming book, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, available for pre-order right now. In that book, I talk about cancel culture, and I make the obvious point that cancel culture, like a censorious culture, is of course a lot better than having the government actually regulate speech. But de Tocqueville talked about this going all the way back to democracy in America, the idea that you can excise somebody from polite society and it really can ruin their life. Now, that power can be used for good, right? Sometimes that's actually necessary. So you have a racist cop, like an actual racist cop, right? And the cop is caught saying the N-word to a black suspect. And so that person loses their job and people don't want to be friends with them. Like, okay. But if you're talking about using cancel culture to the point where, like, you wore a costume trying to make fun of Megyn Kelly in 2018 and the Washington Post runs a 3,000-word article on you and then tries to target you, like, cancel. The point is that social pressure can be used for good or it can be used for evil. I'm very much in favor, as you know, Leonce, I've talked about the fact that I think social institutions outside government are really, really important, like churches and synagogues, I think are really important. Why? Well, because they set social standards and they set expectations for you. So the question is not whether people are held to standards socially. I think they are and they should be. The question is that cancel culture has a certain type of conduct that is canceled. And the type of conduct that is canceled is basically you said something that offended someone in 1833, and now we are going to come after you. That's what I object to. But you're right. Obviously, you know, in a social ostracization is not the same thing, governmentally speaking, or from a libertarian perspective, as the government coming in and cracking down on speech.
Fair game. Thank you, Ben.
I appreciate it, Leonce. Thanks for the call. Let's see, Caleb in Kentucky. You're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Caleb.
Hey, how are you?
Hanging in there, man. How are you?
Great. I'm a really huge fan, man. I watch your show every day, and then I've read 3 of your books, just pre-ordered your new one, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps. And my question for you today is, with so many disputes going between each country, you know, India, China, Pakistan, Russia, China, do you think that, and especially with all the economy, you know, going down, do you think that a war could arise out of this, or do you foresee any potential wars?
I think that it's unlikely that a war arises out of this because China is actually more interested in economic dominance than actual physical territorial dominance. So China basically just wants to maintain its borders and then economically annex surrounding nations, right? Use the power of its trade and the power of its overweening influence in that area of the world in order to bring countries into its economic sphere. This is what they're trying to. They've done it to Hong Kong already. They lied and then they basically, you know, stealthily took over the political process there. I feel like they're going to try to do the same thing to Taiwan. They're going to try and use their economic power to try and get a government elected in Taiwan that's much more friendly to the Chinese government. I don't think China wants an overt war with India. And I don't think that India wants an overt war with China because that would be obviously unbelievably deadly. You're talking about 2 nuclear powers that are the 2 most populous nations on Earth. India and Pakistan have gone at it 1,000 times since the division of India and Pakistan back in the 1940s, particularly over Kashmir. It's never erupted into a full-scale war. And it seems like that would be much riper for a full-scale war than India-China. Like, I think that it'll be weapons down. I think that this will be, you know, I think this will be moved beyond. If there's going to be, you know, another world war, it has to be such a conflict of visions that implicates a series of alliances that you end up in a world war. Like, let's say that India and China went to war. Do you think the United States would jump in? I mean, pretty certain not. It seems very doubtful that Europe would jump in. So the world wars that we've seen before are times when you have actual alliances that are violated, right? China attacking like an overt American ally with whom we have a mutual defense treaty is a sort of different
Then we
thing.
would definitely.
I appreciate the call, Caleb.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I wouldn't worry about nuclear annihilation just yet. We're going to take more of your calls in just 1 second at 855-236-3228, 855-236-3228. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.